and to, oh, thanks, Kerry. Hello and welcome to those of you that weren't with us yesterday, and welcome back to those of you that joined us yesterday for the first session of Building Community Leaders. This is our virtual training series that we run every summer for both of our academic communities, so those people that will work with us to deliver our design challenges, and also our chapters. So our chapters are student members, students who have set up or were looking to set up chapters within their universities to share kind of the vision and the mission of Engineers Without Borders UK. So today's session is a chapter specific session. So we will be looking at all of the kind of things around chapters, and it's the first of three. But before we go through the agenda and what we're going to be doing today, I just wanted to introduce myself. So I'm Millie, I'm the movement facilitator here at Engineers Without Borders UK, and I'll be taking you through this training and session. I'm joined by my colleague Kerry. Kerry, I don't know if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Kerry, I'm the Movement and Mobilisation Manager here at Engineers Without Borders UK. Looking forward to hearing all of your ideas for the year ahead over the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. So as I've said, today is the first chapter specific session within this year's Building Community Leaders. We're going to be following a bit of a journey across the 3 different sessions that we will be hosting over the next 3 weeks. Today is planning with purpose. So we're going to be looking at the purpose of chapters, why they exist, what you will be doing, and how you can best start your year off really well with putting together a plan, setting some objectives and things like that. We're then next week going to be looking at skills for the year ahead. And we're going to be following that up with building your network. So how can you both get the leadership skills and the communication skills to do the role that you have in your committee as best as possible, and how can you get to know other people from both within the chapter space across the UK and wider, and also kind of how we can use those leadership skills to really grow a network and bring you into the partner movement. So that's where we kind of are in the journey. We're right at the beginning of that. As I've said, today we're going to be exploring the purpose of a chapter and how it links to globally responsible engineering and the Engineer Without Borders UK strategy. What we're going to do is start by thinking about kind of different activities that you've maybe done. We're going to have 3 different breakout rooms, each of which is hosted by a different chapter, and they're going to be telling you a little bit about what they've been up to either over the last year or kind of thinking about their plans for next year, hopefully to inspire you, especially those of you that are potentially new to being a committee member of a chapter. We're then going to look at how you can set effective objectives. So objectives are really key. They keep you on track. They give you a kind of purpose, and we're going to look at how you as a chapter can set those or start the process of setting those if you haven't already. And then linked to that, we're going to be looking at how you create impact. So how do you best create and measure the impact that you are having both in your local university community and wider. So that's what today looks like. As we said yesterday, we've got a few house rules. So the first is to engage. Again, the more you engage with these sessions, the more you're going to get out of them. Today's session is going to be really collaborative. We've got 2 quite long breakouts where you're going to be meeting and talking to other chapter committee members. We're also going to be doing some kind of quizzes with the use of Mentimeter. So engaging all that will give you the best experience possible. And to add to that is just avoid using other things. Make sure that everything else that you've got going on is kind of switched off. We will be using your phone for the Mentimeter if you've got one, but other than that, please try not to use it. And then if you're not speaking, make sure you're on mute. I think kind of after 18 months of Zoom, we're all pretty used to that now. And then if you've got any questions at any point, Kerry and I are here to kind of answer those. So we'll be keeping a check on people putting their hands up and the chat box to make sure that we are monitoring any questions coming in. But we do also have space at the end of today's session for you to ask any questions you may have. So, before we get going with looking at what the chapters are, we're going to do a bit of a quiz to get everyone going, see how everyone's feeling today, but also see for those of you that were in the session yesterday, and hopefully those of you that have been involved before, whether you know a little bit about what Engineers Without Borders UK vision and mission and principles of global responsibility are. So, we're going to be using Menti for this, Mentimeter. So if you could all on a separate device, separate browser, head to www.menti.com, which you should be able to see at the top of your screen, and then enter the code that you can see. You should be able to, it should bring you up with a page that looks very similar to what I can see or what you can see in front of you. And we're just going to start off nice and easy with how are you feeling today? And are you excited for the year ahead? So I can see Kerry's just put that into the chat for those of you. So I can see one person has already, a couple of you have already responded. I'll give you all some time. If anyone's having any issues, then pop your hand up or let us know in the chat and we can see if we can work that out. So it's looking like as a group, we're all feeling pretty good. It is a Wednesday, so we're halfway through the week, if not over that now, but feeling 4 out of 5 is pretty good. And really great to see that you're all really excited for the year ahead. So that's really exciting to hear. Hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of how Mentimeter works. I think you should all have had at least a kind of chance to have a go. I can see that 24 of you have responded. So we're going to go on to our quiz. So there's a leadership board for this. So we're waiting for everyone to enter. You should have, if you haven't already, be prompted to put your name in. So I'll give you a chance to do that. We're going to know at the end of each question, we'll have a leadership board come up. It's going to judge and give you points based on whether you get the answer correct and how quickly you get that answer. So hopefully this all works. This is the first time using this live. But in a bit, it should prompt you to answer the questions. You should have 30 seconds or so to answer the question. And we've just got 2 today to start off with. So everyone is ready. Here we go. Here's question number 1. So what is Engineers Without Borders UK's vision? So you've got an option of 4 different things. Take a quick read and see if any of you recognise what the vision is. Got about 5 seconds left, so hopefully some of you will answer. Great, looks pretty good. 17 out of 25 getting that correct, so pretty happy with that. That means that those of you that were around yesterday were definitely listening. Let's see what the leadership board says. So it should rack up everyone's points. And where are we? So Gabriel, looks like you were the fastest with that one, so congratulations. But Jess is pretty close by, following you up. What I probably should have said is that over the course of all of the chapter sessions, we'll be keeping an eye on these leadership boards, and there's the potential for a prize, but we'll see how everything goes. Right, on to second question. Let's see what people think for this one. So, what are the 4 key principles of globally responsible engineering? So you've got 3 different options here, all looking quite similar, but one of them has the 4 correct key principles that here at Engineers Without Borders UK we refer to and use in our work. So we've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Great, again, 19 of you getting that right on the money, so well done. And let's have a look and see what the leaderboard looks for this one. I think it will add them on from the last one, so let's have a look. All looks pretty close. Has it changed the leaderboard? Yes, it has. So Jess, well done. You led there, followed by T, then Letitia, and then Gabriel in 4th place. Hopefully that has given you a bit of an idea of kind of our vision, a bit of a reminder of our vision, and a reminder of what those principles are that we use within our work. In a nice little way. What we'll do is keep an eye on that leadership board across the 3 sessions, but congratulations, Jess, on getting in those speedy answers correctly. I'm going to pass over to Kerry now to look at kind of the purpose of our chapters and why they exist.
Great, thanks, Millie. So we're going to spend some time looking at kind of what are we trying to achieve, what are we trying to do as a chapter, what is our purpose? But I've got a feeling that being that you're all kind of committee members or those heavily involved with chapters on this call, you probably don't need us telling you what the purpose of the chapter is, and you probably have quite a strong idea. So using the kind of chat, what do you think the purpose of your chapter is? What would you say if someone asked you, why do you have a chapter? What's that about? Pop it in the chat, or feel free to shout out if you'd rather than type. What is the purpose of your chapter? Why do you do what you do? Right, we got a message from William, and William said that it's about spreading the message of how engineering can change lives and create a more sustainable planet. And Henry's added leading students into globally responsible careers. Fantastic, both of those responses there. So kind of really looking at that kind of change that we can have, and kind of increasing the awareness and kind of increasing the awareness for consideration of what kind of happens next after university. Where do you go from there? Great responses, thank you. To promote globally responsible engineering within local communities and at your university. Lots of different responses here, great. Promote ethical and sustainable engineering. And Jessica's here put, biggest purpose is within outreach, providing students in the local, hopefully wider community with an understanding of the importance of globally responsible engineering and giving them the stems they need to get into STEM. Fantastic. We've got upskilling students so they can make engineering sector more globally responsible. Thanks, Julia, that's a big one. Fantastic. Okay, so like I said, you don't need me here to tell you what a purpose of a chapter is. You're absolutely correct in everything you kind of put. it's really about that kind of coming together and inspiring others, and kind of, you know, teaching and nurturing one another about the skills that you need to become globally responsible engineers. Now, we have put together a kind of a short couple of sentences to describe what a chapter is, and this is just a kind of a tool to help you when people ask, and you're not sure of how to kind of explain it. So if you see here, there's just a couple of sentences that, first and foremost, chapters are established by you. They're established by students who want to see a real change in engineering. That's why you're here. And that's why you kind of do what you do. You want to see that change happen. What you're doing by kind of creating that chapter is, you know, creating that network of people that are wanting to put global responsibility at the heart of engineering, that are wanting to see engineering being more safe, being more just. And you're doing that through the kind of extracurricular activities at your universities. And as you've all kind of really put in the kind of comments that have come through today, it's about inspiring kind of peers around you, about upskilling those peers to be able to achieve that, but also about what can you do in your community, if that's at universities, on the actual campus, or your local area. And Jessica kind of touched on that being able to reach out into that local area and make a difference. So it's kind of looking inwardly at your university, what kind of changes can we make, but also a little bit further afield, what can we do within our local community, and kind of your definition of your local community. Obviously, the word community has really changed this year with being virtual. I know a lot of you have been kind of really thinking about how you can reach new audiences through that new mainstream. So just a few sentences there to help you explain to others what chapters are all about, and hopefully you can see a lot of synergy. I can see a lot of synergy myself between what you said and kind of what's on this slide. Now, how do we use this kind of information, these kind of conversations, to work out what do we do as a chapter? So we've worked out what are we trying to, like, what's our purpose? Why are we here? And the next kind of step is really kind of looking at those activities. And what we want to talk to you about today is kind of what purpose-driven activities are. So these are activities that are really founded in that purpose that we just explained. So to help explain this, we're kind of leaning on the goals that we created here at Engineers Without Borders UK. What, as a movement, are we trying to achieve? So the first one is that inspire piece, that encouraging lifelong meaningful commitment to globally responsible engineering. And with the activities that you do as a chapter, as you've already kind of mentioned, it's about spreading that awareness of kind of global responsibility, those practices with your peers, with other engineering disciplines. And that can be through the talks that you do, the kind of workshops that you run, kind of really founding them in how are we using these activities to inspire others. And we've seen over the last kind of 20 years the impact of these chapter activities that are inspiring people across the country. And during the last kind of 18 months, whilst we've been doing this consultation with our members and asking them, why are you involved with Engineers Without Borders UK? What motivates you to be involved? A kind of resounding thing that came out was that first interaction at university, that first interaction being at a chapter, and that creating that kind of first step to becoming a lifelong commitment to global responsibility. And I've got a quote for you, which is from a former chapter president at the University of Birmingham, who was there, I think, kind of 6 or 7 years ago now, so is kind of very much in their career. And they said, when we asked them kind of what inspired them, they said it was through the work that they did at the Birmingham chapter. They were able to see a whole new view of engineering and how it can be applied with the context to communities around the world. Massively opened my eyes and definitely set me on my career path. And someone mentioned in the comment earlier about that what that drive, wanting to set people up for their next career steps. And we've seen that happen with our professional members. They can really kind of pinpoint those interactions that they had at their university, at their chapter, that set them on the way to kind of really taking the first step in that global responsible career path. Now, it's all well and good inspiring people. That's a really fantastic first step. But the next step that we need to take once you're inspired is those skills and expertise. So our next kind of purpose-driven activity is really focusing on the upskilling that need to equip the engineering community with the skills and expertise to be globally responsible. So thinking about the kind of activities that you're doing, how are they creating opportunities to upskill, to expand your skills, to kind of really dive into global responsibility? And that could be the workshops that you're running, kind of using the knowledge of your members to say, hey, we don't get to do this in curriculum, we don't get to cover this on our degrees, but we think it's fundamental. Can we bring an academic in, or can we bring someone within the professional sphere to come in and do a workshop with us where we get to learn it in a bit more depth? Or it could be the design challenges, the design-a-thon, for example, that we know a lot of you get involved with, providing those kind of safe spaces to learn and implement the skills that you are learning through your degree courses. So that ability to strengthen and deepen your understanding through your chapter activities to kind of create that foundation that you're going to need when you enter the workplace. And one of the ways you can do this is by asking members, by asking your peers, what are the things that we think are missing, but also reaching out to recent graduates, people that have been involved in your chapter and perhaps are now 2 or 3 years into their careers, and asking them what are the things that you wish you knew before you graduated? Are those things that we can create workshops for? And the other thing we've seen a lot of in the recent years, especially this year, is reaching out to other people within your SU, within your engineering department, to come and do training for you. So it's kind of expanding your knowledge. So those are the kind of two areas we really want to focus on today when we're talking about the types of activities that we can deliver. One being providing that inspirational moment, that switch on moment of why we need global responsibility. And then once you've made that first step, how are we upskilling, providing you the skills and expertise, and your members the skills and expertise to take that long commitment in your careers. So that's the kind of foundation we want to start at. The next thing we're going to do today is kind of really talk about what that means in practice. What are the ideas, what are the activities that you can do? So we've invited a couple of chapters to come and share what they've been doing this year and kind of recent years, to give us a little bit of food for thought. So what we're going to be doing is going into some small breakout rooms where we're going to hear from 3 different chapters and hear what they've been up to. So what we've got up is in the first breakout room number 1, we're going to hear from EWB Birmingham, and they're going to be sharing their experiences on being involved with the virtual design-a-thon this year. In our second breakout room, we're going to hear from EWB Bristol, and they're going to share some details about their Ingenious podcast, which is a regular podcast that they produce, interviewing different individuals. So they're going to talk us through what the Ingenious podcast is all about and the processes they go through to kind of generate that material. And our third breakout room is going to be hosted by EWB Glasgow, and they're going to be sharing how they've approached outreach and how they're going to be approaching outreach this year, and specifically how they're intending to link with different PGCE students and different expertise within their university to strengthen the outreach that they're running. So those are the 3 rooms. Now, by the magic of Zoom, we're hoping that you're going to be able to select which room you are most interested in. So hopefully Millie's been able to sort that out, and you'll get a little option on your screen to say which room you would like. So Birmingham is looking at the design from, EWB Bristol will be sharing about their Ingenious podcast, and EWB Glasgow in room number 3 will be sharing their outreach and their plans for outreach this year. And you'll have an opportunity, obviously, to ask lots of questions. So those are our 3 rooms. And hopefully you'll get a pop-up in a moment.
I can see lots of you moving in. So please, if there's more than one of you on from your chapter here, then make sure you kind of split across the different rooms to make sure that everyone has the perspective from all the different 3 people. And you've got 10 minutes for this breakout room. If you're having any problem, just let me know which person you'd like to hear from, and I'll manually move you into the breakout rooms as well. So there shouldn't be anyone left in this main room shortly. So I'm moving all of you over that are letting me know where you'd like to be. So I think it's just 4 of you now: Kirsty, Glassy, Yavaz and Gabriel. If you'd like to let me know. Oh, Gabriel, I can just see which one now. Of course.
Are there any that
slides off just to begin with, whilst I can see all your faces, and it is lovely to see them all. So whilst we're all inspired, we've had some really great conversations in the breakout rooms around all sorts of different topics, activities that you can run. I want to take a look at objectives. So during the end of year check-ins that I had with many of you, I asked you to kind of focus on what you want to achieve over the next year. So a really great point in the year. The academic year hasn't yet started. There's a lot of time-ish just before we kind of kick off with freshers and everything like that. So as chapter committee members, you're in a really great place to start thinking and really setting those objectives for the year. So has anyone in the room today kind of set objectives before for anything, whether that was university, work, anyone kind of want to put their hand up and say, yes, I have set objectives before? No one? I can see your faces now, so I know if you... Oh, Ali has, excellent, and Janali, great. And Josephine, a couple of you. So setting objectives is really important. Does anybody know why you should kind of bother setting objectives? Feel free to kind of unmute or pop it in the chat. Why would you set an objective?
I think setting objectives will help visualize the goal that we're trying to reach, but not only visualize, maybe also kind of have an idea on how to approach and how to get to the goal by setting steps to the objectives. So for instance, if I want to go to, I'm lazy, but I want to start to go to the gym. So the objective is a gym, and the steps going to the gym is maybe first having a visualization of why would the gym be a nice thing for me. And this is the first step, is to think the pros and cons. And it's like this, it's more like helping yourself into reaching that goal in an easier way.
Definitely. It's all about using your time more effectively to help you get to whatever that endpoint may be. And when you have something that is like a chapter, you've got a real clear kind of vision and mission that is fed in from Engineers Without Borders UK. We all know why we're here. We know the purpose of why we are sitting here today. And then we move on to that kind of planning bit. So we've talked a little bit about why we set objectives. Has anyone ever come across a SMART objective before? Got some shakes, got some nods. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing screen, but that does not mean you can turn your cameras off. I like to see your faces. SMART objectives. Anyone got any idea of what the letters may stand for?
I think the S stands for specific.
Yes, it does. Here we go. Anyone know what the M stands for? Oh, I can see Henry's popped that in the chat. It's measurable, although Henry has got a friend with him, so it could also not be Henry. Anyone know what the R is? No, the A. A comes after M.
Anticipate.
Sorry, what was that? Accuracy. I think so it could be any of these, but it is achievable. And then anyone know what the R stands for? I think someone had got it before. So Letitia is correct. Oh no, it's relevant or realistic. But relevant can sometimes be used instead. And then anybody know what the T stands for? Yes, it's time bound. So this is what a SMART objective means. And this helps us to set really effective objectives. And the prompts help you to consider how best to achieve your goal. So if we're looking at setting a goal and we need it to be specific, we want to really clearly state what specific task you need to carry out. We then follow this with measurable. So include measurables to track progress and evaluate your success. So that's the figures, the percentage, the number of people, the number of hours, for example. Then you've got achievable. So we want our objectives to be ambitious, but we also need them to be realistic with the resources that you have. So that could be resources based on money, time, people's availability, access to people, all of these different things. But make sure that you're not kind of lowballing. We want to make sure that the goal and the objective that you're setting is something that you need to reach and you need to work to get. Then we have relevant. So how is your objective working towards the wider purpose? So is it relevant to what Engineers Without Borders UK is trying to achieve as a chapter that sits kind of under kind of the umbrella of Engineers Without Borders UK? Is what you're aiming to do, your objective, relevant? And hopefully earlier today and yesterday's session has given you a really good idea of how you can fit your activities into what we're trying to achieve. And then finally is setting a deadline. So an objective without a deadline means that it will just continue going and you don't feel that pressure. I'm sure some of you work really well towards deadlines, so maybe those university courseworks, the closer that deadline becomes, the harder you're going to work at it. If you don't have a deadline, it can just drag and drag. So make sure that your objective is time bound. So an example of this that I sort of came up with is the one that I've got on your screen. So to organise and run, it's quite specific. A design-a-thon, again, really specific, but also really relevant. By November 2021, so that's time bound, we've got a deadline there. Involving at least 30 students, that's measurable. From more than one discipline, again, measurable, but both those things seem quite achievable too. and then helping to spread the message of globally responsible engineering across our university. Really relevant. Does that make sense? Has anybody got any questions around kind of SMART objectives and how we set them? No, are we all good? So what I've just popped in the chat is a link to a PDF resource that we've set up that's all about objective setting. What we're going to do is move into breakout rooms again. I'm going to split you all up into groups of 3 and 4, so quite small groups, and not the same groups that obviously you were in earlier. And in this space, I'd like you to use the chance to talk to other chapters that potentially are from different parts of the country, have a bit of a chat about what you're planning for the year, if you've got to that point or not in your planning. Share some of your ideas, and then as a group come up with a range of different objectives that you could aim towards. So I'm not expecting you to have the full objective written out by the end of kind of the 10 minutes, but what I would really like is a bit of a conversation to get started for you to then go back to your own chapter committees and have a bit of a think about how you can incorporate this learning into setting your objectives for the year. Before I move you all into the breakout rooms, does anybody have any questions, or are we all really clear on what is needed? We're all good? Okay, what I'm going to be asking you is between now and our next session next week is to fill in this PDF that I've sent you, or kind of in a different format if you prefer, and email that across to me. And I'll keep a hold of all of those. And when we check in midway through the year, I might refer back to these objectives that we've all started thinking about and see how you are kind of measuring up to those objectives, whether you've achieved them already, whether we need to kind of do a bit more work around them, or whether your focus has completely changed. So I will be expecting you to send something to me. So make sure that you do kind of engage and participate in this breakout room. Great, well, you're going to have 10 minutes and I'm going to open the rooms now. You'll be automatically moved into these rooms. Welcome back, everybody. I think we're just wait on more people to pop out of their breakout room. Anybody set any good objectives that they want to share, or started to think about what your objectives are going to be for the year? Anyone fancy sharing? No, not willing to share, keeping it a guarded secret so that other chapters don't know what you're up to? Please don't do that. Please share what you're all doing. Great. Well, oh yeah, Beth, go on.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think a common theme in all of us in our breakout room was definitely making the most of the outreach and trying to get into schools now that things have opened up, and just really take all those opportunities.
Definitely. I think I wouldn't be surprised if lots of you are looking at how you can now use the fact that we can be in person in whatever space, whether that's outreach, events, design-a-thon, socials. I think we've got a lot of space in that area to do things that you weren't able to do last year. Great. So you should all now have your objectives, or have started to think about what they may be. And the importance of a SMART objective is that it allows you to measure what you're achieving. So that M that we include, that measurable, and that it's really important to include that. So you need some kind of number, or something that you can kind of quantify what you're trying to achieve. And to help you understand whether your objectives have been met, you need to have an idea of what you've been doing or what you have achieved in line with what your objectives are. So the measurable part of your objective is really linked with the impact that you're having. So whether that's the impact of how many people you've reached through your panel events, how many events you've run, the audience at a at a panel event, and how many students you've reached through outreach, how many members you've grown by, all of those things are measuring and are creating an impact. So the kind of things that we can measure impacts by is kind of looking at various different things. So recording the activities, learning from your members and learning from each other. And we can only continue to drive change if we can look back at what we have all done previously and understand what has happened. And for many of you, you will have had a conversation with me over the last couple of months where I've gone through kind of all the different activities that you've done and asked you kind of how many people turned up, what happened, how did you find it? And all of this was really helping me understand what's been going on in what has been a very strange year, but we need to continue kind of checking and understanding this into next year. So within the chapter space, as Engineers Without Borders UK, we report what you're all up to directly to our trustees, to our partners. I tell my other colleagues what's been going on. But I can only do that if I have the information from you guys. And I can't wait until June next year to not give an update, because I might not have a job. But also it means that I can't help you build and grow what you're trying to do. So if I don't know that actually you're already struggling to reach schools in your outreach, then I can't be there to support you with this. So it's why this information flow is really, really, really key. So this year we're going to be looking a little bit at how we can structure our approach to measuring impact. Now the session in 2 weeks' time, Building Your Network, is going to have a breakout room that really focuses this for some of you, and focuses on how we can do this in a lot more detail. But I wanted to bring it up today because it links directly with setting those objectives. I'm going to shine a bit of a light on one of our chapters that did this really well and completely unasked, but EWB Glasgow this year did a really nice annual report that they sent to us. I'm sure Tony doesn't mind me sharing this. This report was great, but it covered everything that they'd achieved in the year. So it was in written format, but it had kind of what went well, what each activity involved, how many people it reached, and also some learnings from it. So there was a bit of kind of copy in there that was Tony and the rest of the committee talking about what they thought about it, what they may do differently next year. But it gave a really good summary of their year. And actually, I said to Tony when she gave it to me that it's a really nice way for them to look back at years previous and understand how you've grown. So we're going to be looking at how we can incorporate that in all of the chapters. And I know that lots of you do other things in lots of different ways. Thinking about that, if we could go kind of back into Mentimeter, so if you've got your phones back up with the same code, I'd be really interested to know from you, if you're thinking about how you're going to measure your objectives, how would you then measure the impact of your chapter? So if I came to you in November and said, what have you done? Who have you impacted? Or how have you impacted the wider community? What would you say? How would you do that? Or how would you have collected that data for me? So I think Menti should ask you to maybe do, to pop some things in. So I can see someone said chapter membership. It's a really easy thing to track for a lot of you. Yes, those of you that do outreach, the number of schools that you've visited, the events you've hosted. Feedback here, 2 different ways of feedback, a form and a survey. Event attendance. Yeah, so lots of different things. And all of these have a number kind of linked to them, or you're collecting data directly from your attendees. Whoever has put in a spreadsheet, excellent. love a spreadsheet. But I think it's a really clear way of tracking those wider objectives, but also tracking kind of what you're doing and making sure that's somewhere that's really accessible. Looking at projects as well, that's success, your satisfaction surveys. And hopefully looking at all of this, none of it seems too difficult. Just a quick hands up of those of you that I can see, and also using the kind of hands up function. How many of you do you think could collect some of this data for next year? Yeah, definitely. It's a good number of hands up there. Well, hopefully that's something you can start thinking about, and we'll go into a bit more detail over the next couple of weeks in terms of what that looks like in a bit more. But it's just something to start thinking about, and I'll share all of these different ways that we can measure your impact. But hopefully it's given you an idea of how important that is. Great. So just to focus as we wrap up, and another way that we can measure that impact, and we've seen the impact of this as well this year, is connecting. So connecting with each other is really important. It's how I think a lot of us have got through the last 18 months, is connecting with other people, albeit virtually, but we're all here today in a virtual sense from around the world. And to help us ensure that our impact is growing and that we are building on the learnings that we take from each year, we want to make sure that you're all connected. So I know that Kerry previously has put the Slack invite into the channel. I would really recommend those of you that are not in that space to join it. There's Slack channels in there that are more broad about kind of chapter activities and updates. We use it as well for the designathon throughout the year, but we also have a private Slack channel with every single chapter between you as a committee, me and Kerry, where you can ask us kind of specific questions. That's just private, and it's a really easy way rather than emailing us to get in touch with us. So we'd really recommend doing that. It also means you have access to each other. So you can connect with us, but I'd actually much prefer you connect to each other. You're all doing the same things across different parts of the UK. And we'd really like you to know that you have others that are similar to you, going through similar things that you can reach out to. So it's also a space for that. And I know that during this call already, 5 of you have already joined that space that haven't joined already. So it's definitely working. We'd like you to also kind of share your ideas and be inspired. So hopefully the breakout rooms today with Birmingham, Bristol and Glasgow gave you a bit of a sense of the different things that you can do. But keep that going. So if you have an idea that maybe you can't run in your university, or you need another university to support you with, reach out and see who's interested. Make sure you're inviting each other to your own activities. There's a channel dedicated to this, especially virtually. You can join lots of panel events, and you can make the experience for your chapters a better experience because they can access so much more. But also, some of you are really closely located in person, in actual geographical location. So have a look at who our other chapters are and see if there's anyone nearby that you could connect with and host events in person too. And then please use the power of this movement to put global responsibility at the heart of engineering. It's really important that you are our voice to so many students out there and wider, and we really value the support that you do and you put in. So to follow up on that, and we'll touch on this a lot more over the next couple of weeks, is the resources we have available to you. So I'll send a follow-up email following today to all of you, but everyone else that missed it, with some of the links and discussions that we've covered. And in that will be a link to our website, which is hosting all of our resources. you may see they've had a little bit of a facelift from the resources from last year, but we have all sorts of resources focused on how you can run chapter events, begin projects, how you can set your objectives, which you've already seen, and then also looking at that industry support. So if you would like to reach out to industry and try and get support there, some tips and tricks on doing that. In addition, we have our Designathon resources and our resources for outreach, which I will give you the links to on the website. So that's a bit of a thing. We will touch on these in a little bit more depth throughout the next 2 sessions. For those of you that are joining us for the next session, please, there's a bit of homework to do for that session, so keep an eye on your emails, and there'll be a short questionnaire for you to fill in that will really help us engage with everybody in the next session. So looking forward to that. But before we wrap up, just wanted to see whether anyone had any questions. I'll pull the slides down and kind of open the room to any questions that anyone may have. We all good? Great. Well, if there are any questions, I'll stay around for a little bit afterwards if you've got any questions you want to ask just directly to me. But if not, just a reminder that the next session for all of you as chapter members specifically is next Wednesday, our Constructive Conversations panel event focused on purposeful, which you should all know is one of the key principles for globally responsible engineering. And the next session with us in a room as chapter committee members is on Thursday, the 26th of August, where we'll be looking at building your skills, so your skills in leadership and your skills in communication. But otherwise, thank you for attending. I hope you found today useful. I hope it's been a good start to building community leaders, and I'm really excited to see what your objectives are. So please do send them my way as and when you've kind of formulated those as a chapter committee. But yeah, thank you very much.